is Blake from the Gig Harbor Fly Shop, and today we are trying out the Sage Sonic 697, the Payload 689, and the Maverick 690. And we got 3 6-weights here. This is the shootout. We tried them on multiple lines, and here's the results. Okay, we tried all 3 rods with different lines, and we tried each line on every rod. We tried a Rio Grande Elite, we tried a Rio Predator Elite, and we tried a Rio Outbound Short Premier in the intermediate line. And first up on the Maverick with the 9-foot 6-weight, my favorite line on this was the Rio Grande, and it was just silky smooth. I loved how this thing cast. The little bit lighter line than the heavier lines really performed well. Great saltwater rod. I think this rod will be a delight for people fishing small bonefish. Man, Belize, this is the rod. This will be fun, especially with no wind. Cutthroat rod for the sound, absolutely. It definitely plays better with the intermediate lines than the heavier floating lines that just load that rod deep. Stiff tip, loads a little bit deeper though. If you're used to more comfortable casting rods, this might be the rod for you. The Sage Payload, this is the 8-foot 9-inch 6-weight. This thing's super accurate, feels a little bit different because of the way the grip is formed. And with the Rio Predator Elite on this thing, I loved it. It just bombs line. I could huck a ton even though it was shorter. That shorter length though, the accuracy that you get with this line is pretty phenomenal. So the difference with the Outbound Short compared to the Predator, that Outbound Short has a little bit more bump in the front of the line, whereas the bump in the Predator is towards the back. So it's gonna cast long distance, but you gotta get a little bit more of the head out. And I feel like in the bass fishing situation, this rod excels. I can use one more false cast over the Outbound Short to then kind of drop my fly right on the target. Whereas the Outbound Short, since that head's at 30 feet, if I'm carrying more line, it starts to get squirrely, and it's just, the cast makes it difficult for accuracy at a distance. With the Outbound Short, it hucks line for sure. So, Sea Run Cutthroat Trout with topwater, great rod option. Bass fishing with the Predator line, absolutely. Really like that a lot. The intermediate line on here, it was okay, it was great. It still threw it. The Grand, even the Grand, it was a delightful line on this one as well. The Sage Sonic 697, so this is the 9-foot 6-inch with the fighting butt, gives you the extra inch on the bottom. Really like this rod. Sea Run Cutthroat Trout off the beach, this rod is amazing, especially with the Outbound Short Premier in the full intermediate. I really liked how it cast with that. The Predator line, absolutely threw it. It was great. With the Grand, it felt a little bit light on it, and it was fine, but I definitely preferred the Maverick with that lighter line. Distance-wise, especially with that extra 6 inches, this thing hucks. It just bombs the line. In hand, it felt a little bit heavier, probably because of the length, than the Maverick or the Payload. It didn't feel too heavy. So in the 6-weights, they all come with the fighting butt on them. They're all set up for saltwater with aluminum reel seats, components that will handle salt. I think maybe my top rod for Sea Run Cutthroat Trout, it's probably gonna be the Sonic, especially if you're used to a fast action rod and you like that power. If you're used to a more relaxed cast, I think go with the Maverick. But the Payload for bass, more accurate casting, man, it was great. If you're gonna do both, if you're gonna be bass fishing as well as fishing for Sea Run Cutthroat Trout, especially with topwater, I definitely think the Payload is a great tweener rod that can do both of those. Streamer fishing for trout, we did throw yesterday on the water the Maverick with the Outbound Short Sink 6. And so fast sinking line, it loaded deep, but it still handled it really well. And I really liked how it performed, but I think the intermediate lines are gonna be glorious on the Maverick. Bass fishing the other day, we tried out all of these rods with different lines on them to see how they threw big flies on the water for bass. The Maverick handled the small popper really well, but when we switched to the really big giant fly that you could probably throw with a spinning rod, the rod that threw those things the best absolutely was the Payload. with big monster flies, the Payload just turns those things over and throws them where you want it to go. I mean, it's a great rod to cast that big stuff. So just a quick recap. Bass fishermen, you're gonna absolutely love the Payload. And the 6-weight, I was shocked at the size of flies it will throw. If you're gonna be largemouth fishing exclusively, I'd bump up to the 7-weight, but the 6-weight for our area here in Western Washington, the 6-weight is great. Handles the stuff that we throw, the size of fish that we usually fish for, but then it also gives you the opportunity to double dip with a Sea Run Cutthroat rod. The Maverick loads a little bit deeper, stiff tip, nice rod with that Rio Grande. This rod can play in a lot of places. I think it'd be a great streamer rod for trout too. I'm looking forward to trying it out to do that. But Sea Run Cutthroat fishing with an intermediate line on here is gonna be great. I think the Coastal Quick Shooter, I'm looking forward to trying it out on here because I bet it's gonna be great. But with the Outbound Short Premier in the full intermediate, it handled it, loaded it deep, and was really comfortable to cast. The Sage Sonic in the 9.5-foot 6-weight, this was the cannon. This thing bombed line and really hucked. If you're used to a faster action rod, this is definitely the rod for you. And with the Outbound Short, it was great. The Predator, it threw that beautifully. Even with the Rio Grande, it still threw that. I like the Grande on a couple of the other rods a little bit better. Hey, thanks for watching this video. I hope it's helpful for you. We have all of these rods linked on our website, linked in the description below. I also have another follow-up video just talking about these lines and when you would want to use these lines, and we'll give you an overview on those great 6-weight lines from Rio. Make sure you subscribe so you get all the updates on new stuff that we have coming out, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the water.